Hi, I'm Jack, and I am here to talk to you guys about the 24th installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Black Widow. After 2 years, it's finally released in theaters after all these delays. And the question is, was it worth the wait? And the answer is yes. It really was worth the wait. Black Widow stars Scarlett Johansson as Natasha Romanoff once again, with a supporting cast of Florence Pugh, David Harbour, Rachel Weisz, Ray Winstone, William Hurt, O.T. Fagbenle, and many more. This is a non-spoiler review for Black Widow. I will not talk spoilers about this movie, big or small, so if you haven't seen the movie, you are absolutely safe. But if you haven't seen Avengers Endgame and all that, you might as well get out of here because that's been out for 2 years. But when it comes to this movie, this is a spoiler-free review. I'm not going to mention spoilers, so you will be fine. I will do a spoiler review eventually at some point. Without giving away any spoilers, Black Widow follows Natasha Romanoff, who's now on the run from the Sokovia courts after the events of Captain America Civil War, and her past comes back to haunt her, and she's getting hunted down by Taskmaster and trained widows from the Red Room, and she teams up with those closest to her in order to bring them back together and take down the Red Room and destroy them once and for all. To kick off what worked in this movie, I thought the acting is terrific. Scarlett Johansson gives her best performance as Black Widow to date, because this time she's at the center of the movie. She's not a side character working alongside Iron Man or Captain America or Hawkeye. She is the title character, and she leads this movie. And I loved her dynamic with all these other characters that she interacts with. Primarily her chemistry between her and Yelena, because Florence Pugh is excellent as Yelena, like, for real. Anybody who loves Florence Pugh will be very satisfied with her in this movie. She is easily one of the best parts about the movie, and I really liked all their funny moments and heartfelt moments that they have together. And they are so good when it comes to the action sequences, because it does not feel like action you've seen in other MCU movies. This feels distinctly for this movie, and that's a really good between them. But David Harbour is also really good as the Red Guardian, who is Russia's version of Captain America. He gives off this kind of jerk vibes from the characters and all that, but he can be really funny, and I enjoyed his moments, and especially, of course, the heartfelt moments, because this is, without a doubt, not a funny movie. It's, well, not exactly not funny, but rather it's just not 100% comedic like the Ant-Man movies are all at. This is very much, it's an emotional movie about Natasha Romanoff and these characters. And so David Harbour worked really well here. I thought Rachel Weisz, who plays Melina, also did really well too. Granted, she doesn't have as much screen time as the other three characters list I named, but she works well what she's given. She's a nice presence in the movie, and it continues to add to the heartfelt family dynamic of the film, and that's also really good. But yeah, the acting is really good all around, even from like the villains and from these characters that maybe you don't see very often. But yeah, the acting is really good in this movie. Another thing I liked about this movie is the tone. This is easily, without a doubt, one of the most darkest movies in the whole series. To be honest, I don't even think kids should go see this movie. Even the opening sequence, which is terrific, something they've never done in the movies before. It's really cool. It's so mature, and it has a lot of dark elements throughout the movie. And again, this is not like the Ant-Man movies or anything else you've seen in the movies. If there's one movie you could sort of relate this to, it'd be like Captain America, the Winter Soldier. But because this movie is pretty dark, it has a lot of dark moments, and especially with the topics tackled in the movie. And at times I remembered seeing that, I was like, this is dark. Is this really an MCU movie? But definitely, this is definitely nice, because, and it's also so unique because you can't compare this to other movies that they've put out before, and it works really well for this character, especially with like the Red Room and all that. Like, you have to kind of make it dark in order for this story to kind of work. So yeah, it's a dark movie. If you're gonna take kids to see this movie, you might want to just beware, because there are going to be a lot of mature topics and scenes that occur throughout the movie, so keep that in mind. The action sequences here are terrific. I was so blown away by how these action sequences were really good, because these are easily some of the best action sequences we've seen in the MCU movies, besides like Captain America the Winter Soldier, Avengers Infinity War, Captain America Civil War, some of the stuff in Endgame. The action sequences are terrific in this movie, and they're shot really well. You kind of see most of all these sides. There's no shaky cam in these action sequences for the most part, and I liked how, because it's non-powered characters, you see them attacking each other in brutal ways, because the action is also really brutal in this movie, because again, it's a dark movie and it's very mature, and the action sequences continue to highlight that with its tone, and the action sequences work really well in this movie, and it's really good seeing Natasha Romanoff fight people that's more on her level. So the action sequences were really cool. The directing from Cate Shortland is marvelous. Like, this doesn't feel like this is directed by anybody else in the MCU. This feels specifically like it's a Cate Shortland movie, and I appreciate that, because Black Widow continues to add to why Phase 4, with all the other Disney Plus shows we have, and so as with some of the other movies, that it's so unique, it stands out, because this doesn't feel like similar to other movies. Visually, it's different from all the other movies from a visual style, and I appreciate that, and I think Cate Shortland does a terrific job helming this movie. And the cinematography, when they happen, it looks great. They can be pretty beautiful to look at whenever there's a moment that like happens to be a piece of cinematography work. Like, it's done well, and I really like what we saw, and I think visually it stands out amongst like some of the other MCU movies, and they don't feel similar to stuff you've seen before. However, that brings me to my issues with the movie, and the first thing that comes to mind is I thought the villains weren't that great. Taskmaster was a letdown, in my opinion, and while how they used Taskmaster worked for the story they were trying to tell, it feels weird that this is the Taskmaster they went for, and it bums me out that this is how they use the character. Another issue I had with this movie was the stakes. Because we already know Nat's fate in Avengers Endgame, where she dies on Vormir, this movie, a lot of moments that happen to her when it looks like, oh, she's in danger, is she going to make it out, it's cheapened because we know what happens to her. It's a bummer, because a lot of the stuff that happens to her in this movie, well, I can't name them, and I won't say them unless I do a spoiler review, then I couldn't really feel much tension, because we know that she will survive this movie and that she'll be fine all the way to Avengers Endgame. While here it's just like, oh, she'll be fine. She'll make it out of this because she survives until then. But yeah. But when it comes to the other characters, it worked because you don't necessarily know their fates yet. So it worked when it came to anybody who's not Nat. But because this is Black Widow and this is her movie and this came out after Endgame, I didn't feel like there were much stakes in this movie. In the end, I thought Black Widow was a great time at the theaters, and I definitely think you guys should see this movie in theaters and not from home. And it's definitely a great start to Phase 4 on the Marvel Cinematic Universe side when it comes to movies. And it has great acting, terrific action sequences, marvelous directing, and it does a good job at finally giving us a Black Widow solo movie after all these years. So, in the end, I'm going to give Black Widow an A-. And you all should definitely see this in theaters. Oh, and there is an end credit scene all the way at the end of the credits, so stay for that because you will not miss it. I won't say who it is or what it sets up, but if you stick around, you will be really excited for what this means for the future of Phase 4. And I definitely cannot wait to see what Phase 4 does from here, especially after now we finally have Black Widow. And next up, we got Shang-Chi, and I cannot wait for that. But before we get to Shang-Chi, I will do a spoiler review for Black Widow at some point. I don't know when, but it will happen, and you should definitely go see this movie. It's worth the wait, and you should definitely see it on the big screen. And it will be it's a fun time. So definitely go see it. Stay tuned for my spoiler review of Black Widow, and definitely stay for that end credits scene. So, those are my non-spoiler thoughts on Black Widow. What did you think about this movie? Let me know down below in the comments section. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this movie. Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Are you somewhere in the middle on this movie? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. So don't forget to give this video a like, comment down below in the comments section, and hit that subscribe button if you want to see more.